Hey everyone, and welcome to another CodeAccessHub explainer. So, have you ever stopped to think about how something like Bitcoin actually works? I mean, how can you have a global currency with no bank, no CEO, nobody in charge? Well, the secret sauce, the thing that makes it all possible, is this really clever and, yeah, pretty controversial idea called proof of work. Today, we're going to tear down this engine of digital trust and see exactly what makes it tick.
All right, so to really get this, we've got to start with the core problem it's trying to solve. Just imagine for a second, you want to build a digital cash system. But here's the catch. It has to be totally open. No banks, no PayPal, no central server anywhere to call the shots. The big question is, how do you stop people from cheating? What's to prevent me from sending you one digital dollar and then turning around and sending that exact same dollar to someone else? This is the huge hurdle that stumped all the early attempts at digital money.
And that right there is the famous double spending problem. A really good way to think about it is like a shared public notebook, a ledger that everyone has a copy of. Now, if two people on opposite sides of the world try to write down a transaction at the exact same time, which one is the real one? Which one do we all agree on? Without a boss to make the final call, how does this scattered group of people ever come to a consensus on a single shared history? That's the puzzle we need to solve.
And this is where proof of work comes in. It's the absolute game-changing solution that arrived with Bitcoin thanks to the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto. The genius of it is, well, it's actually beautifully simple. The core idea? Just make it way more expensive to cheat the system than it is to play by the rules. It basically flips the whole security problem on its head and turns it into a straightforward economic game.
So here's the nuts and bolts of it. Proof of work basically forces anyone who wants to add new transactions to the ledger to solve a really hard computational puzzle. The key is, finding the answer is incredibly difficult. It takes a ton of computing power. But, and this is crucial, once someone finds an answer, it's super easy for everyone else to check if it's correct. It's like a Sudoku puzzle that's a nightmare to solve, it takes 2 seconds to verify. This whole process creates a tangible link between the digital world and the real world, the cost of electricity and hardware. It's what makes the blockchain's history so incredibly hard to change.
Yeah, and this quote from Satoshi's original white paper really just hits the nail on the head. One CPU, one vote. Think about that for a second. It's a totally new kind of democracy. It doesn't care who you are, where you're from, or how much money you have in the bank. All that matters is the amount of computational work you're willing to contribute. The chain of transactions that has the most work poured into it, that's the one everyone agrees is the truth. It's as simple as that.
Okay, let's try an analogy to make this crystal clear. Picture a massive worldwide puzzle tournament happening 24/7. All the competitors, these are our miners, are in a frantic race to solve a ridiculously hard puzzle. The very first person to crack it gets to shout Eureka and wins a big prize. Now, because solving this thing takes real-world resources, we're talking powerful computers and lots of electricity, you just can't fake a win. The prize is seen as legitimate by everyone because they all know how much real, costly work went into earning it.
So, how does this crazy global puzzle tournament actually translate into a secure financial record? Right? Let's break it down. We're going to follow a single transaction all the way from the moment you click send until it's locked into the blockchain forever. Okay, so it all kicks off the second you send some coins. Your transaction gets broadcast out to the whole network. Miners all over the planet immediately see it, grab it, and bundle it together with a bunch of other recent transactions into what they hope will be the next block. And then the race is on. That's our hashing race, the puzzle tournament. The winner finds a solution, shouts it out to everyone, and all the other participants quickly check their work. If it all checks out, bam! That block gets added to the chain, and everyone updates their copy of the ledger.
Now, for this whole thing to work, you need two really distinct groups of people. First, you've got the miners. Think of them as the construction crew, right? They're doing the heavy lifting, competing to build the next block, and hoping to get paid for their work. But then, and this is so important, you have the full node operators. These guys are the building inspectors. They don't just take the miner's word for it, they check everything. They independently verify every single block to make sure it follows every single rule. They're the ultimate guardians of the network, the ones who keep the miners in line.
All right, so you hear a lot these days about newer systems, right? Things like proof of stake. So with all that going on, you might be asking, why do we even still talk about proof of work? Why does it matter? Well, the answer really comes down to the raw, undeniable power of its simple, almost brute force approach to security. I mean, its strengths are really hard to argue with. First, the security is just off the charts. Seriously, trying to attack a massive network like Bitcoin is so mind-bogglingly expensive that it's just not rational to even try.
Second, it's decentralized in the purest sense. Absolutely anyone with the right hardware can jump in and start participating. You don't need to ask for permission. The rules are also super straightforward, which makes the whole system easy for anyone to check and verify. And maybe the biggest thing, it's been battle-tested for over a decade. It just works.
What's really fascinating is that the core idea behind proof of work is actually older than Bitcoin. It was first dreamed up way back in 1997, believe it or not, as a way to fight email spam. But it wasn't until 2009, with the launch of Bitcoin, that the world saw what it could really do for securing money. Of course, since then, lots of other projects have used it and tweaked it. But yeah, Ethereum's big switch over to proof of stake in 2022, that was definitely a huge moment that shifted the whole conversation.
And it's super important to get that proof of work isn't just one single thing. It's more like a recipe that different projects have tweaked. So Bitcoin kicked things off with its famous SHA-256 algorithm. But then you have something like Litecoin, which uses a different algorithm called Script, hoping to get faster transaction times. Or look at Monero. It uses something called RandomX, which was designed from the ground up to be difficult for specialized mining chips, all in the name of trying to keep mining fair and decentralized.
Okay, but all this incredible security doesn't just appear out of thin air. It comes at a cost. For all of its amazing strengths, proof of work has some really significant downsides and controversies. Let's talk about the other side of the coin, because the price of this proof is very, very real.
And the biggest one, the one you've probably heard about, is energy consumption. It's the elephant in the room. Because you have this constant global race between miners, the network uses a staggering amount of electricity. To put that into perspective, at times the Bitcoin network alone has been estimated to consume more power in a year than entire countries, more than Norway. That's a lot.
But the criticism doesn't stop with energy. There are other big challenges too. A huge one is the trend toward mining centralization, where just a handful of massive mining operations or pools control a huge chunk of the network's power. Then there's the fact that it's slow. The number of transactions it can handle is pretty low compared to traditional payment systems. And while, attacking Bitcoin is next to impossible, some of the smaller, newer proof-of-work chains are definitely at risk.
So really, it all boils down to this one massive question. The question that's at the heart of the whole debate today. We know proof of work gives us this incredibly robust, trustless, permissionless security that we've never seen before. But is that amazing security worth the very real-world cost? The energy, the hardware, the environmental impact? There's no simple answer here, and how we decide to answer that is probably going to define the future of this entire space.
Well, we hope that helped demystify the engine of digital trust a little bit. If you want to dive even deeper into tricky topics just like this one, you can find all of our explainers over on the CodeAccessHub YouTube channel.
And hey, if you got something out of this, you know what to do. It would be awesome if you could like this explainer, maybe share it with a friend, and definitely subscribe to the channel. Oh, and make sure you ring that notification bell so you're the first to know when our next one drops. Thanks so much for tuning in.